A tense traffic stop reveals the hidden prejudices of a power-hungry officer, only for him to confront the startling truth about his target. The man he harasses. Who was he? When the officer will know about his identity, what will happen? But before we start, if you guys like this story, please comment below and subscribe to Story Storer. Please hit the bell icon. Thank you. The bright red and blue lights flashed furiously against the darkened suburban street, painting the scene in chaos. A cold sweat clung to Jordan's back as he kept his trembling hands firmly on the steering wheel. Beside him, his wife Mia sat stiffly, her knuckles white as she gripped the edge of her seat. The cruiser's siren had long since been silenced, but the oppressive weight of authority hung thick in the air. Jordan Hayes had always believed in the transformative power of education and perseverance. Growing up in a modest neighborhood with limited opportunities, he learned early that hard work was the key to a better life. Mia, his high school sweetheart, shared that belief. Together, they navigated the trials of medical school, long nights, overwhelming exams, and countless sacrifices. Their love was a beacon through the grueling journey. After years of relentless effort, Jordan achieved his dream of becoming a highly respected cardiothoracic surgeon. His reputation for saving lives grew, earning him accolades and respect. When he and Mia moved into an affluent suburban neighborhood, it felt like a triumph over their past struggles. They thought they had left prejudice and judgment behind. But, as life would soon remind them, not every door to success was immune to ignorance. It was supposed to be a much-needed escape from their hectic lives. Mia had planned the evening with care. Dinner at a charming downtown bistro followed by a scenic drive through the quiet city streets. Jordan was thrilled. It had been far too long since they'd spent quality time together without the interruptions of hospital calls and demanding schedules. The meal was perfect. Delicious food paired with laughter and heartfelt conversations. As they drove home, the car was filled with the soothing melody from the radio and the warmth of shared joy. Mia's head rested lightly against Jordan's shoulder as the city lights blurred into gentle streaks. Then, out of nowhere, flashing red and blue lights filled the rearview mirror, shattering the tranquility of the night. Jordan's heart sank as he pulled over to the side of the road, dread creeping into the space where peace had once been. Jordan's hands tightened on the steering wheel as the officer approached the car, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. Mia sat frozen, her breath shallow. The officer rapped on the driver's side window with an impatient knuckle. Jordan rolled it down, forcing himself to remain calm. "License and registration," the officer demanded, his tone sharp. Jordan reached slowly for the glove compartment, narrating his actions. "I'm getting my registration," he said evenly. The officer's eyes flicked between Jordan and Mia, suspicion etched into his face. "What are you two doing out here?" he asked, his voice heavy with implication. "Driving home," Jordan replied, handing over the documents. "We just had dinner." The officer examined the paperwork, his expression hardening. "Fancy car," he muttered. "Yours?" "Yes," Jordan said firmly. Mia's hand found Jordan's, her grip tight. The tension in the air was palpable. Another cruiser pulled up, its tires screeching against the asphalt. More officers emerged, their presence amplifying the unease. Jordan took a steadying breath, determined to maintain control. "Is there a problem, officer?" he asked. The man's lips curled into a sneer. "We'll see." The second officer, a middle-aged man with a weathered face, surveyed the scene as he approached. His eyes flicked between Jordan and the aggressive officer, assessing the situation. "What's going on here?" he asked, his tone firm but measured. "Just checking out a suspicious vehicle," the aggressive officer replied. Jordan's jaw clenched, but he kept his voice level. "We've done nothing wrong." I'm a doctor, and this is my wife. We're just trying to get home. The seasoned officer's gaze sharpened. Doctor, huh? What's your name? Dr. Jordan Hayes, he said. Recognition flickered in the officer's eyes. Hayes, the cardiothoracic surgeon. Jordan nodded. Yes, have we met? The officer's face softened. You operated on my wife last year. Saved her life. Silence blanketed the street as the weight of the revelation settled over everyone. The aggressive officer's posture stiffened, his confidence wavering. The seasoned officer turned to him. I think we're done here. Let them go. The aggressive officer's face reddened. Fine, he muttered, shoving Jordan's documents back at him. Jordan met his gaze calmly. An apology would be nice, he said quietly. No apology came. Instead, the officers returned to their cruisers, leaving Jordan and Mia standing in the cool night air, shaken but unbroken. The drive home was tense and silent. The adrenaline had worn off, leaving only exhaustion and a lingering sense of disbelief. Jordan's hands were still tight around the steering wheel as they pulled into their driveway. Mia's voice finally broke the silence. Do you think this will ever change? Jordan sighed deeply. I want to believe it will, but tonight, it just reminded me how much work there is left to do. They stepped inside their home, the comforting warmth of their sanctuary washing over them. Mia placed a hand on Jordan's shoulder. You handled it well, she said softly. Better than I would have. He pulled her into a gentle embrace. We shouldn't have to handle things like that at all, he said, his voice low but resolute. They knew they couldn't let the night define them, but its scars would linger, a reminder of the battles still to be fought. News of the incident spread quickly throughout the neighborhood and local hospital community. While Jordan had no intention of going public with what happened, word of mouth and social media took care of that. Patients, colleagues, and neighbors offered support and expressed outrage over the blatant misconduct. Dr. Patel, Jordan's mentor at the hospital, approached him during rounds. I heard about what happened. Are you okay? I'm managing, Jordan said. But it's frustrating. Dr. Patel nodded thoughtfully. Unfortunately, these situations remind us why we need to keep advocating for change. Later that afternoon, the hospital administration reached out to express their solidarity. The chief of staff issued a public statement condemning the discriminatory actions of the police officers involved. Jordan appreciated the gesture, but what he wanted most was accountability. The seasoned officer's recognition of him had diffused the situation, but what if it had been someone else? What if there was no reputation to shield them? Mia stood by his side throughout it all, unwavering in her support. Together, they vowed not to let the experience be swept under the rug. Change wasn't just a hope, it was a responsibility. As the cruisers pulled away, Mia exhaled a shaky breath, her voice trembling. That was terrifying. Her hand found Jordan's, squeezing it tightly. Jordan remained silent, his mind racing. It's not the first time, he finally said, his voice steady but heavy with the weight of the encounter. But it never gets easier. The sting of the officer's suspicion still lingered, a sharp reminder of the world they still had to navigate. Mia turned to him, her eyes filled with concern. You handled it with so much grace, she said softly. He met her gaze, giving her a tired but resolute smile. I had to. It was the only choice I had. They sat in silence for a moment, the cool night air creeping through the cracks in their car windows. But even as the world seemed to hold its breath, Jordan knew that their journey was far from over. Back home, they sat together in the warmth of their living room. The world outside felt distant. We'll keep pushing forward, Jordan said, determination in his voice. Mia nodded, squeezing his hand. Together,